What do you do when you pray but heaven feels quiet? When you do everything right yet nothing makes sense? This is the story of Job and what to do when God seems silent. Job was a good man, not perfect but honest, faithful, and deeply devoted to God. He had a loving family, great wealth, and a peaceful life. People respected him. His days were full, and his nights were calm. From the outside, Job's life looked like proof that doing good always leads to good things. But then, without warning, everything changed. In a short period of time, Job lost almost everything he had. Raiders stole his livestock. A storm collapsed a house, killing his children. His wealth vanished. His future was shattered. And still, Job refused to curse God. Through tears and grief, he said that God gives and God takes away, and that God is still worthy of praise. Then his suffering went even deeper. Job became sick. Painful sores covered his body from head to toe. He sat alone, scraping his wounds, barely recognizable as the man he once was. Even his wife, overwhelmed by pain and confusion, told him to give up on God and die. But Job wouldn't do it. He was broken, but he still held on. And then came the silence. God did not explain what was happening. There was no voice from heaven, no vision, no clear answer. Days turned into nights, and nights into long stretches of waiting. Job prayed, but nothing changed. He cried out, but heaven felt closed. Soon Job's friends arrived. At first, they did the right thing. They sat with him in silence, sharing his grief. But after a while, they began to speak, and that's when the pain grew worse. They told Job that suffering must mean sin, that God would not allow this unless Job had done something wrong. They insisted that if Job confessed, everything would be fixed. Over and over, they tried to explain his pain with simple answers. But Job knew they were wrong. He searched his heart and found no hidden evil. He didn't claim to be perfect, but he knew he wasn't being punished. Still, the questions burned inside him. Why was this happening? Why would God allow this? Why wouldn't God answer? Job spoke honestly. He didn't hide his pain. He didn't pretend to understand. He questioned. He wept. He complained. He even argued with God. But through it all, he kept talking to God instead of walking away. That's one of the most powerful lessons of Job's story. God can handle our honest questions. Silence does not mean absence. God was not ignoring Job. God was not powerless. Even when Job could not see it, God was still at work. Eventually, after a long season of silence, God spoke, but not in the way Job expected. God did not explain every reason behind Job's suffering. He did not give a step-by-step answer. Instead, God reminded Job of who he is. He spoke about the creation of the world, the vastness of the universe, and the wisdom beyond human understanding. And suddenly, Job realized something important. He didn't need all the answers. He needed to trust the one who holds them. Job humbled himself. He admitted that there were things too great for him to understand. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just around him, but inside him. Then God restored Job's life. Job's health returned. His future was rebuilt. He was given more than he had before, not as a reward for suffering, but as a reminder that God is faithful. The silence was not the end of the story. So what does Job's story teach us when God feels silent? First, silence does not mean God has abandoned you. Sometimes God is working in ways we cannot see yet. Second, it's okay to be honest with God. Faith is not pretending everything is fine. Faith is choosing to keep talking to God even when you don't understand. Third, not every answer comes right away. Growth often happens in the waiting. Trust is formed in the quiet. And finally, God's presence matters more than explanations. When God feels silent, He may be drawing us deeper, not pushing us away. If you are in a season where prayers feel unanswered, remember Job. Remember that silence is not the same as rejection. Your story is not over. And the God who seemed quiet is still listening, still working, and still faithful. Sometimes the greatest faith is not found in loud miracles, but in quiet trust.